Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. The goal is to be transparent and unbiased. This is not an endorsement. It's a privilege to serve you. Let's get into it.
Hey guys, what's going on? So I am here on a beautiful, bright, sunny day, and I'm actually checking out a pretty cool bike called the Sol from Blix. I'm actually here with my man Pontus. Hey there, put it there.
How's it going?
So tell me a little bit about the inception of the Sol.
So the Sol is a classic cruiser bike, which means very comfortable to ride, very easy to ride, and basically you sit back and enjoy riding, strolling around on beach cruising or city cruising or whatever you want to do. The concept of the Sol, that differs a little bit from regular cruisers, is that it also has a really good performance features to it, and also really good utility features to it. So you get a very classic stylish looking cruise bike, but also some really neat functionality and performance.
Awesome, that's really cool. So yeah, we can jump into the specs in a little bit, but as Pontus was saying, the style of it is definitely one of the greater aspects to it. It has like this nice swoopy line to it. It's very attractive, very approachable, but it also has a lot of utilitarian features. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the accessories. But yeah, it definitely is a very striking bike. It looks really good and at a pretty good price point too. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and jump into the specifications. All right, so we're a little bit off the beaten path. Let's go ahead and show you a little bit more about the Sol. So of course it's a beach cruiser, but let's go ahead and dive into the mechanical specs of it all, because it's pretty darn comfortable and a lot of the little details kind of lead to that. So first and foremost, up on the front you have a pretty wide tire for what you're getting. I mean, it's not a fat tire bike. I definitely wouldn't even call it a plus size. That's kind of like the 3-inch wide. Those are a little bit bigger. This one actually fits a nice middle ground. This is a 27.5 diameter. It's actually 2.2 for width. So the width actually has some comfort to it, as well as like a nice tread for street use or for a nice little trail. It also has the brown sidewalls, which is becoming all the rage these days. So that's pretty cool. Along with that, you do have a silver double-walled rim with some 13-gauge spokes coming up to the front. So the brakes here, these are a mechanical disc brake from Tektro. These are some Tektro Aries, and they're 160 millimeter discs up on the front. So good stopping power, especially for a beach cruiser, because a beach cruiser by and large is meant for kind of like easygoing riding. It's not really meant for going fast or carrying a ton of cargo. I mean, compared to a traditional bike, this does both of those. It does carry more cargo and it goes faster. But these mechanical disc brakes are really good choice for this beach cruiser. You got a solid fork up front. You can tell we've kind of ridden through the grass a little bit, so it's got some goop on it, but it's a steel fork up front and a 1 1/8 inch headset. So up here is the plate for the accessories. We'll kind of talk about the accessories a little bit later on, but this is the nameplate, or like the badge for the bike, for Blix. Got that cool B on it, and these 3 bolts come off, or these screws come off, and then bam, that's how you get all your accessories on there. Like I said, we'll address this a little bit more when we get to the accessories. But continuing on with the mechanical specs, one thing you'll see way up front here is the controls, or the cockpit. Let me go ahead and wiggle around here. So you have a really wide handlebar. So the entire handlebar length is pretty wide. It's about give or take 1,000 millimeters if you measure the entirety of it, and has a pretty good back sweep to it as well. I'd say it's somewhere around, I don't know, about a 45-degree angle. It's really nice because you have kind of like that really comfortable steering where your hands aren't twisted to get to the controls. It's actually pretty darn comfy. And alongside of that, they have a lot of other comfort things too, but those handlebars are a big part of it, because that way you can sit back on the seat and the handlebars come back to you, so that puts the rider weight back towards the seat as if you're sitting up on a regular chair without having to lean forward. So continuing on with the controls, you have a lot of real estate up here. You could mount quite a bit up on the handlebars if you so desired. You could have a water bottle holder, you could get a phone holder, you could get a horn, you can get another set of lights. All sorts of stuff will fit up here, and plenty more space as well. Continuing on with the comfort features are the grips. So these grips are kind of a friction mounted grip on here, but they are pretty darn soft, and they have this kind of like ergonomic edge to them on both the right and the left side, which is pretty nice. That helps you so you don't have more surface area to grip onto when you're cycling, so that you don't get so much fatigue over time, which is pretty cool. So on the right hand side, you do have the shifter mechanism. This is a grip shift, or what's called a grip shift indexer. So that shifts right up in here. So you use your, kind of your thumb, pinch that, and go up or down on there. It's a 7-speed Revo shift up here. We'll kind of talk about the gears in a second when we get to the back of the bike. The brakes also up front have a pretty big lever to them. It's about 4 fingers up here with a nice little rubberized texture on the edge. Also has motor inhibitors, which is an electrical component. On the left hand side, you actually have a bell that's built in. So it's kind of tucked away right in there inside of the brake handle and everything, which is pretty cool because it's nice and hidden, keeps the aesthetic looking really nice for the bike overall. Because you don't have even though you have plenty of space to mount something on the handlebars if you wish, it's not being blocked up by stuff from the get-go. It's kind of like at your own pace. You can put so much stuff on there. So the low step on here, we'll talk about that as we move towards the back of the bike. This is a pretty low step, 17.25 inches from ground to about right here. So that's pretty darn low. I mean, it's higher than a step if you were going up the stairs, but it's really low to get onto. A lot of bikes come up way up here. This one's super approachable. I mean, just about anybody can get onto this thing. It might take a little bit after some knee surgery, a couple months of recovery, but it's an easy bike to get into. I've seen many octogenarians get into a bike this low, or sometimes higher in some cases. But that's pretty cool. That's a nice feature for the accessibility of it, that it's an easy bike to commit to. You can jump on and get in and get going without too much of a worry about how you're going to get on and go there. So on the middle of the bike, you do have the cranks in the middle. This is a 48 tooth chain ring up front. So there's 42 teeth in here which hold on to the chain. Of course, these are 170 millimeter cranks, and the pedals are actually a plastic platform pedal. Now, plastic isn't my favorite, mostly because of longevity. They do work, and they work pretty well, but at some point what happens is, like, the little bridge comes off of the center. There is a metal core in the middle of this, so it's not going to totally stop. It's just gonna kind of lose its comfort and kind of lose its grip over time. That will take a while. It could take somewhere around, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw out a number like 500 miles, 1,000 miles. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing here because it all depends on how you ride it. But these are comfort from the get-go. They do have kind of a texturized rubber platform on the top so that you can kind of get your foot on there and it'll grip a little bit. Of course, with the reflectors on there, that's good for safety. So if there's one thing that I would change if this were my personal bike, it'd probably be the pedals, and that's really no big deal because they work fine. I'd probably rock them until they broke and then get something on the side. But yeah, the rest of the bike has some pretty good mechanical components continuing on to the rear. So this appears to be a zinc covered chain, which is good to repel rust. Coming into the back, you have a Shimano cassette on there, and it has 14 to 28 teeth in the back. So that's 14 teeth on the fastest speed gear, and you also have 28 teeth on the rear. This is a Shimano Tourney TZ for the derailleur. A friend of mine and I were talking about how Shimano Tourney has come a long way, and they're really good components right now. They work pretty well for just about anybody. So I'd totally rock this for the Shimano Tourney, especially on a beach cruiser. A bike like this is meant for some more lightweight kind of usage. So I think it's a good choice because you can still keep the price point at something realistic. You're not going to get something that would be underutilized. Because if you had some super nice components on here, I mean, it would be good. Some people definitely like that, but is it going to be utilized for a bike like that? And so I think this is a really good package overall. So on the back of the bike, you do have some thicker gauge spokes. These are actually a 12 gauge spoke, and the reason why they're a little bit thicker than the front is because they have to handle the extra torque coming from the motor. On the mechanical side, still in the middle, we'll talk about the seat post. So the seat post is a rigid seat post. It doesn't have any suspension to it, and that'd be kind of a nice upgrade. However, this seat post is specific for the bike because the battery is mounted right underneath, and the battery actually comes up from there. And so this seat post is specific in that it has a latch to get the seat out of the way. So you pull up on this latch, preferably with your thumb, and then the seat knocks out of position. You still have a reflector over there, but it's pretty simple to solve that. You can just turn it and then you can get the battery out of there. The reflector, of course, is something that's shipped with the bike. Whether you install it on the bike is up to you. I don't know if it's a legal requirement where you are. In a lot of cases, if you're riding along the beach in particular, A reflector is not really going to be used because they're better at nighttime. But then again, if you're riding at nighttime, I would definitely recommend getting a set of lights for your bike anyway. And that would be an accessory that you'd have to add on to the bike from the get-go. So the battery does come sliding out of there with that latch on the seat. The seat itself is actually pretty good. It does have a set of springs that are kind of covered up right down in here. And the seat itself is about 8 inches, maybe 8.5 wide. Really nice faux leather on here. So it's a really good seat for just kind of sitting down and taking it easy. It has what I'd call kind of like a comfort footprint to it. It doesn't cut in right there for the thighs, so this is a pretty good one for taking it easy, stop and smell the roses kind of riding. And that definitely fits with the rest of the comfort features that you have going on, from the slightly wider tires, the handlebars that we talked about, the seat, you know, kind of having the rider weight back. I mean, lots of stuff going in together on this one. So let's go ahead and talk about the electric system. We'll go ahead and start in the back of the bike with the motor. So this is a 500 watt geared motor made by Shengyi. Shengyi is a motor company out of China, and they make some pretty good motors for lots of different companies. They have a really big set of scale for their company. So they do electric bikes, electric scooters, electric kickboards, skateboards, lots of different stuff. So they really know what they're doing. They're not a hugely popular brand in the United States, and it's a shame because they make some pretty good stuff. So this is, again, a 500 watt geared motor that's being run, of course, through this little disconnect right here. You can unplug that and get the wheel off. I should mention a little bit about that while we're here. So getting the wheel off on a hub drive bike, I mean, this is kind of an aside, but a hub drive is heavier, and of course you have this little disconnect right there. That's really it. Other than that, you can get the hub drive off of a bike just like a regular bicycle. So those two things, they are important. You know, it is a heavier set of equipment, and you do have to disconnect this little guy right here, and you can just pull it apart with your hands. If you don't do those two, or if you don't remember those two things, then it can be kind of intimidating to get them off, but it's perfectly possible. Any bike shop should be able to help you out with that. Anyways, continuing on. That, of course, is being powered by the controller, which is built into this little spot in the frame right in here. That's pretty cool because it keeps the weight down of the controller, and the controller is not too much weight, but having the weight down here as well as having it close to the battery is actually a really good thing, because it draws the power from the battery and then sends that into the motor, so you don't want to have any loss throughout any kind of wiring and stuff. So that's actually pretty cool to have that mounted so close. The battery, of course, sits right in the middle of the bike, right with the rider weight being mounted on the reverse side of the seat post tube right here. That's pretty cool. This is a 48 volt 14 amp hour battery from Blix. It does have an on-off switch for the battery itself, so if you want to turn the bike on, be sure that you flick that switch upwards to turn the battery on. The battery does come out. I actually don't have the key. Pontus has it across the way, but the battery does unlatch from there. I kind of showed you a little bit about the latch here. We'll kind of move it out here and I'll show you what it does. So with the seat and the reflector out of the way, the key goes in on the other side. You turn that and it actually pulls straight out, and that's how you get the battery in and out. You can charge the battery whether on the bike or off the bike. I mean, that's really not a thing. And the battery does lock into position with the key, so nobody can come and take it without taking the entire bike. So long as you lock up the bike just fine, you can actually leave the battery on there in good weather conditions, being from 40 degrees to about 100 degrees. You can leave it there and just keep the battery on the bike itself, kind of in this position, and sort of forget about it, which is kind of what you want a beach cruiser to do. We want it to ride around and be able to forget about all the equipment so you can kind of enjoy the ride. So let's go ahead and jump up to the front of the bike, and I'll tell you about the electric system on there. So we do have the battery turned on. Let me double check. There we go. So the battery is turned on. This is your main display, and it shows you all of your parameters. So let's go ahead and press the power button on the bottom of the remote attachment on the left hand side in this case. The display boots up and it shows you a couple of things. Shows you your speed right there in the middle, nice and big. Shows you your pedal assist level. In this case, it boots up to default at level 1. Your total odometer, and the energy bar that kind of looks like a ruler is actually your battery. So when you press the up or down arrows on the remote attachment, that will change your pedal assist level. So that changes how much assistance you get as you pedal the bike. So of course, this is a cadence-based pedal assist system. So what that means is as you pedal the bike, it's measuring how fast your pedals are going, and it doles out the speed as a result.
With this bike, it does have an internal cadence sensor, and that's built in right in here. So it has kind of like a little counter. So there's one static point on this circle, and then it counts how many rotations you do. And then, of course, gives the speed out. And what you're changing here is how much assistance it gives you. You're also changing the maximum for the throttle. So this bike does have a thumb throttle, in this case mounted on the left-hand side. And when you push down on your thumb, that will expressly engage the motor. So let's go ahead and press that down. You can see it's kind of turning a little bit through the grass there. And like I said, having this cranked up to level 5, that means that you have full power on pedal assist. If you scale that down a little bit to say, you know, level 1, it might go up to about 10 miles an hour or so. It also changes the curve so it's not so power hungry when you're at a lower pedal assist level. The battery level, of course, goes down in segments as you expel the battery, or expend, or use. One other feature about this is it does have brake cutoff switches. So that means that when you pull on the brakes, there's actually a small electronic signal that's being sent from the brake handles down to the motor. So long as you are pulling on the brakes, the motor will not engage. You know, kind of pull down on the thumb there and you see the motor's not moving. So that's a pretty cool safety feature because it won't allow you to go until you pull off on the brakes. So you can kind of see that. I'll press down on the throttle and then squeeze on the brakes. Nothing until I let go with my thumb. Oh, I accidentally hit pedal assist 0. Okay, we'll turn it up a little bit. Okay, press on the brakes, throttle down, nothing. Let go of the brakes, throttle goes. So pretty neat. That's a nice safety feature, so you're never fighting against the motor. So that's the electric system. We talked about the battery, the motor, we talked about the display, the throttle, the remote attachment. Let's go ahead and jump on the bike and go for a ride. My favorite part. All right, so one thing I would say about the Sol is that it's really comfy. And I think that's a really good thing, because you look at this bike and you probably wouldn't see it as a fitness bike. However, it's really easy to get on and off. That's one thing I kind of talked about with the step-through aspect, is that it's really approachable. It's a bike that's easy to commit to. And so I think that the likelihood that you would ride this bike is pretty high. And so therefore the total effect that it would have on your health would probably be pretty good, because it's so easy. You could just totally jump on this thing, go for a ride, hit the throttle to get started, you know, kind of lower the barrier to entry, and then off you go. So when you're steering the bike, it has kind of like those cruiser handlebars that kind of come back to you. Let me turn the camera around a little bit. So these cruiser handlebars definitely kind of come back, but they're not quite so wide that you're driving a bus, you know, the ones that come back all the way to your hip. I have seen some quite that long, and in some ways they're a little difficult because they're not so technical. If something like an obstacle came up, I mean, that'd be kind of rare for this terrain that you'd be in. But this is a really good middle ground for it. I like it a lot. So pedaling along, the indexer is pretty good because it's so quick to get to. You can just totally shift that on a dime. I was a little bit leery of it because typically the grip shifts they could be kind of finicky, but in this case it's set up just right, in which you can twist that just a tiny bit, just a little bit, and it'll switch gears pretty easily. Right now we're kind of going up the hill. Let me turn the pedal assist down a little bit, go down to level 3, 2. There we go. The brakes, you know, pretty good brakes. They're set up pretty well. I like mechanical disc brakes because they're really easy to fix myself. I don't have to worry too much. But when they get set up right, they're really good. And I think they're a good fit for this bike as well. So the tires, you know, the tires do have a little bit of width to them. There are a little bit more comfy tires out there if you get something that's like 3 inches wide or so. But I think that the rest of the combination of the bike really kind of gives it that comfort aspect to it, and I think that's pretty good. One thing I forgot to mention about this bike was all the accessories. Let's go ahead and stop for a little bit, talk about the accessories, and then we'll get going.
Hey guys, so one thing that I definitely wanted to show you was all the accessories that you can get for the Sol, as well as some of the other bikes actually. Between the style and the performance and utility that Blix is going for, this is the utility part. They have actually a pretty cool modular system that I want to show you. So let's go ahead and check it out. So we have a fair amount of them lined up here already. I guess we can start with the bags because those are pretty easy to kind of figure out. So on the far left, we have a trunk bag, and the trunk bag fits onto the rear rack. So as you can see, there is no rear rack on this particular bike, but there is a rear rack that matches color. Is that right?
Right, yeah, you can add both fenders and rear rack to the Sol that are color matched to the frame, and then when you do that, you can also add any accessories to the rear or the front.
Okay. So yeah, the rear rack that is an added accessory, that's pretty easy to understand. You have the trunk bag, you have a one-sided bag, both in black and in brown, as well as a double-sided pannier. And those are pretty simple, they're not too spectacular, but the front is where all the magic happens. So right here you see this pretty big badge for, you know, the Blix B right there. This badge comes off, and you can actually fit a fair amount of accessories on here. So Pontus is going to grab the platform over there and kind of show you what it does. So that platform fits onto the front badge right there in its place with those screws taken out. And with that, you can use it as it is, or you can get the big basket and put that on the front of the bike if you don't want it on the back. You know, that it can fit on either side. And also there is this larger platform, which is kind of like a pizza box shape. So if you wanted to use a strap or a bungee, you could get that on there. And lastly is kind of like the cup holder basket. I don't know if there's a specific name for this basket, but it's a little more stylish.
Basket,
yeah, it's stylish. It comes in this cream color, which fits the Avenue very nice. Also comes in black and another color. Is that right?
Racing green.
Racing green. Awesome. That's great. One last thing that I did want to mention, it doesn't look all that amazing here because of the lack of the rack, but a Yep seat. So this is a child Yep seat. I love to put my daughter in these things. With the rack, it actually fits into the rear rack in that position, and the rear rack from Blix is set up specifically to hold on to the Yep seat natively without any kind of adapter or anything. So that's actually a really cool thing that I like a lot, being able to toss the seat on there. I have a 3-year-old daughter, toss her on there and then go for a ride without having to worry about little adapters or anything, because you know, it's just another point of failure. And with precious cargo like that, don't want to let it go. So one thing I forgot to mention while going over the stats of the bike is the weight. So the total weight of this bike is about 65 pounds the way it is, without any added accessories like the fenders or the rack or anything. And it's pretty heavy. You know, if you wanted to lift this up into like the back of a truck, you know, you'd probably get a second person. I would. But it does make up for a really good balance on the bike. So that seems kind of contradictory, that something heavy is easier to balance. Once you get a little bit of momentum, it's actually pretty nice. It feels really stable. So I definitely have to compliment them on that. Okay guys, thanks for checking out the Blix Sol with me. I think it's been a picture perfect day for it. If you want to check out the full write-up and specifications for this bike, including all the measurements, go to ElectricBikeReview.com, where you can compare this with other Blix bikes, as well as other electric bikes that are out there in the great wide open. So yeah, you can also go to that website and participate in the forums if you'd like to be active in the community, and if you want to ask a question about this or other electric bikes. So thanks for watching, guys, and thank you very much, Pontus, for letting me check out the bike.
Thank you. It's been awesome. If you want to know anything more about the Sol and check availability and so on, go to our website, BlixBike.com.
Thanks, guys.